Okay, so let us begin. So doing the Ashtavakra classes. So we will start with a prayer as usual. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are doing the Ashtavakra Gita classes, and last class we explored into the introduction of this, mostly to understand how this text has come about, and a little bit we try to understand about the teacher and the student, which is King Janaka and the sage Ashtavakra. So today we will get into the text. We'll begin the formal classes of the teachings. So as I had mentioned, these classes, of Ashtavakra Gita, there is not too complicated regarding the processes. Meaning, it is not too like other texts, which Vedanta texts. The process is quite complicated, so sometimes it's a bit difficult for people to grasp the process. But here, it is mostly for nididhyasana, for contemplation, meditation. So although I will be explaining some of this, the main idea with that is that if we have a proper understanding, a proper attunement, that knowledge will somehow leave an impression on us, that wisdom. And so this is what these teachings are. And I was trying to tell last time, and I could not find the right translation, that the Ashtavakra Gita teachings are prameya pradana, which is knowledge predominant, or the truth predominant. So here the truth is not compromised because the student is not ready or doesn't have proper understanding. But yet, if the student is not ready, there is still some impression it leaves. That seed, that impression of truth, will get imprinted in the mind of the seeker. Okay, so this is the main aspect of the teachings. So now we will let us look at some of the shlokas in there. And those of you who have the text can refer to it. And in case you don't have the text, you can just listen. Do people want to repeat, or do you just want to listen? Okay, if nobody wants to repeat, then I'll just say the shlokas. And all right. Okay, so we'll start with the first two shlokas. You can look up on your text if you have it. And I will explain this. And we will not do all the shlokas as I mentioned. The important ones I will go through. The first shloka in the first chapter. Janaka uvacha katam jnanam avapnoti katam muktir bhavishyati vairagyam cha katam praptam yetad bruhi mama prabho. And then the second shloka, Ashtavakra uvacha muktim ichchasi chetata vishayan vishavatyaja kshamar javadaya toshas Tosha Satyam Piyusha Vadbhaja. Okay, the first shloka, he doesn't wait. Janaka is not going through and ask a lot of where this is coming from and what do I have to do? Because King Janaka, as we had discussed last time, he was already a very advanced sadhaka, a very advanced person in his sadhana. He had that ability that even though that he had so many other pursuits, his most important priority was self-realization. Even though he was rich, even though he had all responsibilities and all that. And that is why later He was the one that Vyasa sent his son, Shuka Maharaj, to get that knowledge. So even being a king, he had that highest realization, that ability to balance the worldly life and continue with this spiritual life. So this is why King Janaka is the apt student here. Now, King Janaka doesn't wait. The first thing, the question that King Janaka here is asking, and those of you who have the text, you can read also. But how is knowledge to be acquired? How is liberation to be attained? How is vairagya, dispassion, renunciation to be reached? Tell me this, sir. So he's asking here, Katham jnanam avapnoti. How can I find that knowledge? So this is not worldly knowledge he's asking about, because he has all that worldly knowledge. He's asking about that highest reality, that knowledge of self, the self-knowledge, self-realization. Katham muktir bhavishyati. How is liberation to be attained? Vairagyam cha katham praptam. How is renunciation or dispassion attained? So tell me this. And this is the only question you will see in the whole Ashtavakra. So unlike, as all Upanishads, there are series of questions. But in the whole Ashtavakra, there's the only question that there's later on some discussion is there. But the main seeking here is that, because it's at the highest level, meaning it is not like he's asking, how do I get good health? How do I get, good mental state? How do I find, joy in the world? How can I? It's not like dharma. No questions about that. How can I get self-realization? So directly he's going to that. And how is that liberation attained? That how is knowledge gained and how is liberation attained? Now the interesting thing, though, with that embedded in that question, he asks one more question. Katham vairagyam prapnoti. How do I get dispassion from the world or renunciation from the world? Meaning not like the renunciation of like how ideal or the highest or the outward renunciation is what sannyasis do. So what he's asking is, how do I find that inner freedom, inner dispassion from all sense objects? So this is the relevant thing which we will come in the next sloka. He talks where Ashtavakra starts with that. How to renounce the pleasures, that sense of pleasure we get from the sense objects in the world. So this is the first thing. Now, just to compare this, and I will try to put it in the right spectrum, the 3 points here, the 3 points in that question is asking. One is renunciation, vairagyam, or dispassion. Second is, how do I get mukti, liberation, freedom from all the my own, samskaras, the bondage of karma, the bondage of my own samskaras, the thought patterns that I carry, which brings me again and again into this samsara, that cycle of life and death, But the qualifying thing in this is jnanam, knowledge, wisdom. So if you look at it this way, if you put it technically, although he asks there, how is knowledge to be gained? If you put that in the second, in the middle, knowledge, if you put it in the middle, then what happens? The third question is asking vairagyam. If you bring it to the first, vairagyam, then what is it? Renunciation or dispassion, knowledge, and freedom. So this is like a sequence, in how all the teachings are generally given. So the first thing is dispassion from the world, vairagyam. Second is jnanam, knowledge. And what follows the knowledge is mukti. So in order to get wisdom, that self-knowledge, what do we need? We need sudden dispassion from the world. Just as how many of you had to take time off to attend this class. So you want to get this knowledge, you had to have some vairagya, some renunciation from all from other things, other pleasures. And now once you gain knowledge, what happens? That knowledge, that self-knowledge, that is the only knowledge which liberates us. All other freedom is only relative freedom. Like if somebody, somebody gets some wisdom to get a job, and they get a job, but that job is not eternal freedom, right? That job is also another kind of bondage. He or she is caught up in that job. They have to do that job on a daily basis. So that is not all mukti. So the knowledge that leads to liberation, the knowledge that leads to liberation is self-realization. So there is no doubt what is the knowledge he is asking about. Because if you take this equation, if it was some other knowledge, he would not have asked about vairagyam. He would not have asked about, he would not have said, how can I get dispassion? He knows very well that dispassion is what is necessary in order to get realization. And in order that which follows that realization is liberation. Okay, so this is the first point. Now the second shloka here is a little bit, it's quite strong, and as all of these shlokas, they're all, come from that high stage. And this shloka, he gets directly to the point of worldly pleasures or worldly things. So Ashtavakra's teachings have begun. So the sage Ashtavakra starts the teaching. What does he start with? He says, if you are seeking liberation, like if you want mukti, then he says, shun the objects of senses like poison. So this is actually, the shlokas are written in a very poetic way. So he says, Vishayan Vishyavat Tyaja. So this is a play on like the words, the poetic way of putting it. Vishayan means objects of senses, the things that I love, I'm attached to, I'm addicted to, and all that. Vishyavat Tyaja, drop them like poison. So it's like he's used that word so that it kind of rhymes, And then what do you do after you let go of that? Kshama. So he gives a set of qualities that we need to cultivate. What are these? Kshama, meaning forgiveness or tolerance. Arjava is straightforwardness. Daya is compassion, especially towards those with whom we can help, like the sense of compassion. There are 4 kinds, sometimes those of you who attend other classes might know this. The first kind of compassion is where we are trying to help those who don't have the same privileges we have. They may not have that same kind of wealth or opportunities or knowledge and all that. So that is one kind of daya. The other is like those who are your peers, people who also are equivalent to you, So you have a sense of friendliness towards them, Maitri Bhava. Then the others are those who are above you or superior to you, either in wisdom, wealth, or whatever ways, So instead of being envious of them, jealous of them, we send them our goodwill. We try to learn from them. We try to get the good points from them. And then those who are actually evil or not good in their intention. So there the daya is being indifferent. There the compassion is not that you are going to go out of your way, help them in their evil ways. There it's being indifferent to their the way they are acting. So this is a daya, and then he talks about here Shema and tosha. Tosha here is contentment. So the sense of contentment, which like having and not keeping more than what you need. That is kind of a contentment. Then satyam, truthfulness. Truthfulness is the truthfulness in thought, word, and deed. And this is a practice by itself. And he says, Piyushavad Bhaja, seek them like nectar, like that highest thing that we need. So here a couple of points. Now, this is not the essence of the teaching that will follow, but he is giving this as qualifications that is necessary. Why? Because if somebody is caught up in a lot of worldly attachments, worldly objects, then their mind is not at that peace to seek knowledge and wisdom. Those who are more, their priorities in that life is more towards worldly pleasures, worldly objects, then that is that kama purusha. He is after worldly excitement. So he has still not done enough priority, viveka, in his life. Meaning, initially, see, like when people are in their early in their path, we tell them, okay, you have to seek some passion, you have to find a way of fulfilling your life, being successful and all that. But at the same time, as long as we have that kind of notion that my happiness lies in the world, or people or situations can make me happy, then what happens? We are never willing to come to this inner dependence on self or God or consciousness. So those who are dependent on the world will not come to this kind of a internal inner dependence. We will look for situations to be good. We will look for situations to give us that joy and happiness. We will not look for our own inner mind, our inner state of mind, or even better, our abiding in consciousness. We will not come to that. So the world dependence, as long as we are world dependent, then what that means is that every joy we are seeking is from the world. But what follows is there is a whole text called Vairagya Shatakam. In that there are some very important points brought up, where what is the nature of happiness, the worldly happiness which we are seeking. So it is actually, of course, it is for all of us, when we were initially seeking this life, especially as monks, we are encouraged to read all that. But some essential points from there help us to do proper analysis on the objects, nature of joy we get from the objects. So one of the statements, one of the very important shlokas, which is in that thing, and there it says, "Bhogana bhukta vayameva bhukta, stapo na taptam vayameva taptaha." So there it's saying that we think that we are enjoying some worldly things, some like whatever things we think, like chocolate or whatever, or watching some movie. We think we are enjoying that. This is our kind of a concept that I am the one who's enjoying this. So that sense of enjoyment comes when I and that object is there. So this is normal understanding. But what they're saying is Bhogana bhukta vayameva bhukta. Actually, it is not that I am enjoying that object. I am being enjoyed by this whole cycle of samsara. Meaning I am that object that this whole samsara is actually devouring. In other words, like we are being devoured by this whole creation of samsara. And that is how the samsara is sustaining itself, So it is like that fish which is going to that bait. It thinks like, oh, I'm going to devour that whatever is that bait, But what happens? It is the one which is going to get devoured, right? And so similarly in Vivekachudamani, it is given that each sense, each of us, there's every animal is drawn to the objects of pleasure through one of the senses. Like the deer, some is attracted by, I think the deer in that case is attracted by some nice sound, and the elephant by the touch of another female elephant, and the moth, the fire moth, that is attracted by the fire. But what happens, all of this, when it sees the fire, it goes into that fire. And the bee, through that smell of honey, it goes to that honey, but that honey becomes like a trap. That's how they trap it. So similarly, all of these objects, what happens is they trap us and they keep us hooked. And there it says in Vivekachudamani that all these animals are attracted by one sense pleasures, but human is attracted by all five sense pleasures. So how much more careful a man has to be, or a human, a man or woman, they have to be, because these objects are always beckoning us. And yet it doesn't give us that joy. See, if it were to give that joy, there's no problem. Then we can go seek it. But it is like, it is there, and then once we get addicted on this, then it will leave us. This is the problem with sense objects. Any sense objects is it gives us that sense of addiction, and it is not going to be there all the time. It is ephemeral. It comes and goes, and that kind of joy that comes and goes will not, fulfill us, will not satisfy us. So that short-sighted relief which we are seeking, relief from hunger or relief from any kind of boredom or stress or anything, these are short-sighted kind of relief which we seek. But the problem is, what happens is we are so busy seeking these short-sighted reliefs, we forget that long-term cure or the long-term remedy, which is to be free from this constant cycles, And here is where, many of us, when we come on the path, we're not able to walk that and understand that. So there is where it is said that the seeking, what is the seeking? We are initially seeking artha kama, the material possessions and other passions of life. So slowly, as you come on the path, you're asked to move to dharma, doing righteousness, being good, walking that path of righteousness, and finding a subtler joy in that. Being serviceful to people, being especially wherever you are serving, and being doing good to others, walk the right path. So this is what it is said. But there it doesn't. That is just a means. It is not the. It is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate thing is moksha, where you seek that dependence in with yourself, your consciousness, that self-realization. That nature of consciousness will be explained later. Okay, so this is these are the points he's giving about the first qualification, and so that if we cannot completely put up with that attraction to that object, then at least we should be able to bear them. We should be able to see their true nature. And as it says in Bhagavad Gita, Matra Sparshas Kaunteya Shitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha Agama Payino Nitya Tam Titikshasva Bharata. So put up with them if you cannot completely kind of let go of them. So like all of us who have certain things, that dependence we have created over the life through the body and mind, then we learn to put up with them. But that body is not the source of joy. So this is the next point that he is coming to. That body itself, through which we use as an instrument to get the joys, is in itself not the truth. And this is a teaching that is given in Chandogya Upanishad, where Virochana and Indra, they go to Brahmaji, the creator who had the highest knowledge. And there Virochana is that demon king. So there the first teaching Brahmaji gives them is that Prajapati. He gives that teaching, that is that in the body is consciousness. In your body is Atma, Deha Atma. So of course, these are how the teachings, is given at levels. So when Indra and Virochana heard that, they thought, oh, okay, so body is a consciousness. They were happy, and then they went back. So Virochana was happy with that. He said, then body is consciousness. So as long as your body is there, it's good. You are okay. That kind of attitude. But then Indra started questioning. He said, but the body comes and goes. It is not always going to be there. If I'm going to die with that body, then there is no hope. There's nothing to look forward to. And this is where all religions promise, right? That there is something that exists beyond the body. And if we do not attempt to realize that or know that, then what happens? We are obsessed with all the worldly things, and all of our life is caught up in that. And then at the point of death, we will not suddenly awaken to that, So this is where the body is not the consciousness. So we will do the next shloka for that. So the shloka number 4, we will go to 4. We'll skip 3. Yadi deha pratakritya chitivrishamya tishtasi adhunaiva sukhi shanto bandhamukto bhavishyasi. So what is the process? Now he's giving all the teachings, the means, the pointers. So these are not like, as I mentioned, these are not like structural teachings, point by point, like many prakriyas are not here. It's a direct truth. You get that truth and you can be potentially liberated. If you don't get that truth, it will leave some impression. You keep hearing, and doing contemplation, it will get you. So what is that translation here? He's saying, okay, if only you will remain resting in consciousness, seeing yourself as distinct from the body, then even now you will become happy, peaceful, and free from bonds. So he's saying a means to get mukti, liberation, instantaneously. How is that? Yadi deham pratakritya. If you can separate your identification from the body. You have to add the word identification. Deham pratakritya. Chiti vrishyamya tishtasi. Chiti, chit, consciousness. Okay, if you can rest in consciousness, vishramya, and abide in that. So separate from the body and abide in consciousness. What will happen? Instantaneous freedom. Direct freedom. You'll break all bondage, he says. And most importantly, you will be happy. Not that happiness of the worldly objects. It is a true happiness that abides in our own self. That Satchit Ananda, which we talk about, that Ananda of your own consciousness. So the moment you abide in consciousness, you don't have to say, okay, now I've come to consciousness. How do I go to happiness? So when you come to Chit, that Ananda is there. So it is not like I have to come to Chit and there is another step involved for me to get to Ananda. No, not like that. Chit is Sat. Sat is Chit. Sat is Ananda. So that's itself. So the moment you abide in that joy, and this is that joy which is not dualistic, meaning all other joy is dependent on sorrow. The happiness I get from, from maybe waking up in the morning, is that unhappiness I feel from being very tired at night. So that is a dualistic kind of joy. Or the happiness I get from eating some good meal is that breaking free from that unhappiness I had from hunger. So these are dualistic happinesses and joys. That happiness that you will get instantaneously when you free yourself from that body identification and rest in consciousness is this non-dualistic happiness. It is not subject to some other suffering. It is not relative to something. This is what we say Purnatva or Paramananda. So there is no comparative joy here. There is no like this is lesser joy, there is a higher joy kind of thing. Okay, so this is now he's talking about deham pratak krutva. So now let us try to understand, can I really separate from the body? See, the idea when we say that I have to separate from that body, it's almost like who am I really if I have to separate from the body? Because every kind of idea I have is body-based identification. I cannot even think how I can be happy if I don't have a body, because my whole existence is based on this body. But that body identification, actually, we do break. If you really look at it, when you go to sleep, do you still have your body identification in your sleep? And yet you're very happy, you seek it out day after day. We seek that joy of sleep. So we do know the state of being free from body. It is not like we cannot exist if there is no body. So that sense of existence now is contained or limited because our understanding has been compromised. So we limit that understanding to that body right now. But this is that. What is that teachings telling us? That consciousness is not just body. Now all the thoughts and all that we have, like if you counter argue and say like, okay, Swamiji, the reason I'm able to be free and have happiness in sleep is because the mind is not there. Now the mind is also a part of that body. That all the thoughts that we are coming in the mind, see, they're all about this body identification. Most of the thoughts, unless we come to this Brahmakara Vritti, this thoughts of self-realization, there it is not the thought of body, there it is the thought of consciousness, that one consciousness. So, but until then, everything is filtered through the senses. The information I gather through the senses creates thoughts. And then the information I want to send to the motor senses, they create thoughts. So this is a constant vyavahara, transaction that is happening in our life. All that transaction that I'm doing with others is all based on this transaction between this mind and body, which is happening all the time. Okay, so this is now he comes to this part about who are we really? What is that nature? How do we? What else is there? So the next shloka we can go to. We'll go to the 6th shloka. Dharma dharmau sukham dukkham manasani na te vibho na kartasi na bhoktasi mukta evasi sarvadha. Dharma and adharma, righteousness and unrighteousness. Sukham dukkham, pleasure and pain. Manasi na te vibho. They are purely of mind and no concern of yours, or like they're not all pervading. You are neither the doer nor the reaper of consequences, meaning you are not the karta bhokta. That sense we have that I am the doer and I am the one who's enjoying. Now, this is the source of bondage. Mukta evasi sarvada. And knowing this, you are constantly ever free. Just this knowledge that I am not the doer, I'm not the enjoyer. See, this is a very hard concept, because embedded in us is constantly the sense that I am the doer. Anything we do, like I talk, I do some action, I think, it's constantly embedded with this thing of I am the doer. And this whole question of free will, this whole question of wanting free will is based on the sense of doership. This whole aspect that I have, that I do something. So why is it that we struggle when somebody says that there is no free will? We struggle because every sense I have a sense that I'm doing something, you know. Like even if I were to say, okay, raise your hand, you know. So you feel that sense that I am the one who's raising my hand. So this constant sense of doership, you know, is like it's almost like programmed in us. And the sense of enjoying too, enjoying or suffering, like whatever happens, that if like, you know, now the winter weather is coming here, so that sense of cold, you know, it's the body is going through that, but immediately, like, you know, the mind is affected and attaches that and says that, oh, I am cold or I am suffering. So that what happened to that body and mind, immediately that attachment, that sense of I am enjoying or this is happening to me, you know. And so this is that we are all like, all of us are psychologically victim consciousness in that sense, in terms of experiences of life. You know, we are all like that basic sense of being a victim to whatever is happening to me, you know, this body and mind. That kind of is that essence of that ego, where that ego expresses itself through that sense of suffering, enjoyment, and that sense of being the doer of good and bad. And when that sense of good and bad continues, you cannot say that I'm not the doer. Why? Because, see, this is where, you know, if you don't understand the proper teachings, we are all very happy to say that I'm not the doer when we do something bad. We are very conveniently take up that I am the doer when we do something good, you know. So this is why we are not ready to give up dharma, adharma yet. So that first point, he says, dharma, adharma, you have to give up. But that is if you are ready to say, I'm not the doer at all, of good and bad. Okay. If that stage you have achieved, then we can give up dharma, adharma. Otherwise, what happens? We will very soon be sent to prison. And there we will, because we do some adharma, some wrong action. And that when that wrong action happens, you will suffer, right? And that suffering also, if you're okay with it, then it's fine. But if when you go to the prison, they give you stale food and you whatever they do, you know, then if you suffer there, then you have to come back and take refuge first in righteousness, doing righteousness, because then at least you enjoy the subtle joys of life and get what we call as good karma. That good karma is what will help you on the spiritual path. This is all in one way, that good karma that also brings us to these teachings. So in fact, in the Advaita Gita, it says the one who is attracted to the teachings of Vedanta or Advaita has collected so many good karmas, good samskaras for lifetimes, you know. And so, but of course, even then it's left to us how we use that opportunity, because that sense of doership still remains, right? And based on that doership, I make decisions. That complete choice, that sense of choice I have. But in reality, the sense of choice is also conditioned. So what we all are doing when we study, when we do sadhana, when we do practices, is we are conditioning ourselves with these positive thoughts, and these thoughts which ultimately can lead us to that stage where we can be even free from all thoughts of self. So this is a good conditioning to lead us to liberation. But liberation ultimately is to be free of even that good conditioning, that I am a good person or I'm doing good things. That also has to be dropped. And that is what he meant by dharma, adharma, dropping that dharma, adharma. As long as at the ultimate stage, that sense of right, good actions and bad actions is there, we are not free. That good actions also is a bondage at that stage. But that is where we need a guru, or we need the shastras, or especially a realized teacher, because they are the ones who can actually tell us at that point when we can drop it. So otherwise, we have to continue doing that. And even in fact, all realized masters, they set an example by doing good, even though they are free from that sense. Very rarely you will find teachers like Ramana Maharshi and all that who are free from even wanting to do good and bad. They don't even feel that need to go teach and liberate the world, uh, because that's. But most other teachers continue with that sense. Okay. All right. So now the last one more shloka we will do it, but we will take this up next time because this is quite a loaded. It has a lot of important pointer. This is actually one of the most important pointer in this section. Eko drushtasi sarvasya mukta prayosi sarvada ayameva hite bandho drushtaram pashyasitaram. So you are the one witness of everything and are always completely free. The cause of your bondage is that you see the witness as something other than this. Now, this is a very hard concept to accept because even when we study Yoga Sutras and all that, they are trying to separate you as a drishta from the objects of the world. So this is an easy process to separate from the objects of the world. All of us, if with a little pointer, we can easily get it. But actually, what he is saying is not just that. What is the essential teachings of Advaita is that Eko Drishtasi Sarvasya, there is only one witness. Now, this is a hard thing. See, if I am seeing this hand, my eyes is the, or if let's take a pen. If I'm seeing I'm using the pen every time, so maybe change it today, Use the cup. Okay. Okay, see, I'm seeing this cup. So the cup is in my eyes. Okay, my eyes is the drashta, witness of this cup. Now, the working of my eyes, if it is not good, I don't see the cup properly. How do I know that the eyes are not working properly? Through the mind, My mind is able to see, I'm not able to see properly. And then, of course, the cup is okay. Others are telling you the cup is okay. Then only you realize, okay, something's wrong with my eyes. So now the eyes has become the object and the mind has become the witness or the seer. So we moved from the cup being the object and the eyes being the seer to the eyes being the object and the mind being the seer. Okay, now this thought of the cup that came in the mind, right? The thought I had that this cup exists, that also is known. How is that known? So here is where we say that which knows that is not another mind. That which knows this is awareness. And that awareness is the consciousness we are talking about. And that is the witness. So until this point, all of us will agree because I have an experience of my thoughts. So I'm able to witness my thoughts. Like those of us who are used to some meditation and all that, we are at some point as we sit in meditation, as the mind slowly starts getting quieter, we are able to see the rising of the thought. We are able to see the dropping of the thought, So this is like there has been experienced meditation. Especially if you're used to this Vedantic kind of style of meditation where you're just a drishta, that sakshi. The thoughts come and the thoughts go, You're not chasing after the thoughts, nor are you kind of averse to the thoughts. You just remain an observer of the thought. So this drishta is okay. This drishta, every one of us can experiment. And with a little practice, we can get insights even in our daily life. When we are angry or when we are upset, suddenly there will be times where we're able to step back and become the drishta. So now this point is still is something that is not new. Ashtavakra is not talking about that because he expects that you've already done this. Ashtavakra is now talking about that nature of consciousness itself. Now the problem, what he's saying is eka drishtasya sarvasya. There is only one witness. That witness of my thoughts, I get this feeling that I am the witness of this. But now the thing he's saying is there's only one witness of everything. So this is not in my experience because I know what thoughts are coming and going in my mind. I cannot see the thoughts that's coming and going in your mind. Of course, yogis to some extent are also able to see that. But that again is like where they get that that coming and going. But that one consciousness he's talking about is that it is the sarva sakshi, not just of some people near you or front of you, the whole world, all thoughts, any thought that has ever come in the past, present, or future, or will come in the future. All those thoughts is known by that consciousness, which is beyond time and all that, which we will talk about later. But that is not in my experience. And so this is where we kind of come to a difficulty that my direct experience, I can only see this my own thought, my own feelings. But that is not the nature of real consciousness. The nature of consciousness we are glimpsing is only a reflection. So the true nature of consciousness, when we realize, is this one witness to everything. And it doesn't need to be like an experiential thing. We have to start with that knowledge, that understanding that this is the nature of consciousness. That it is a sarva sakshi, meaning it is that one sakshi of everything. And this is what he is saying here, where he says, Eko drishtasi sarvasya, muktya praptosi sarvada. Once you get this, you are eternally free. So what we experience when we realize stepping back from our thoughts and feelings is we experience relative freedom. Like for a while I realize, oh, at least I'm free. I know this thought has come and this thought is going. So in that sense, this thought will not stay forever. So that will give me a temporary relative happiness. And if you want everlasting freedom, this is what he's saying, right? You have to realize that nature of that one witness, which is always kind of, which is a witness of everything. That is at only one witness, eko. And this is the teachings of Advaita, that there is, there is only one. There is not like multiple consciousnesses. Versus yoga. Yoga Sutra's teaching is that everyone has one consciousness, that Purusha is independent consciousness. Okay, I think this is good for today, and this is a lot of thoughts, and again, we don't have to make so much effort to figure out everything. It is just listening, and it creates that impression. So these teachings are based on just listening and getting that right impressions, and over time, it will accumulate. Okay, any one of you have any questions, comments? We will take them up for a few minutes. But the questions, I prefer if you keep it to what we have discussed today. So general questions, you all can contact me later. But if it's anything specific to today's teachings, I can address them. Or any comment also, you can share. Okay, if nobody has any comment and question, then we can just end it here. So this again, as I had mentioned, these teachings are based on the, these are actually the essential teachings of Upanishads in the way. But Ashtavakra Gita is also, there is no like time when these teachings came out or how it came out and all that. But a lot of it is very clearly in either parallel to Upanishad teachings that came out, or based on that. So this is same kind of a prakriya that he has used. And as I mentioned, these teachings point to that highest reality. So just listening, Shravanam, Nididhyasanam, that will lead us to that abiding in this truth. So as he says, abiding in nature of consciousness. Once we learn to abide in the nature of consciousness, then you're immediately free. Varun, yeah.
So, Swamiji, can one practice to rest in consciousness while being in a weak state? Like day-to-day activities we are doing, whatever, like worldly activities. Can one try to rest in consciousness while doing an activity? Is there some process one can abide to?
Yeah. See, the best way to relate to this is how I was telling before about the deep sleep, Actually, what happens in deep sleep, why we are able to experience some happiness is also because we are in a way resting in consciousness at that point, So the mind is not active at that time. So that problem there, however, is that knowledge is not there, that we are in consciousness. So we come back to the worldly kind of thing. Now, how do we learn to rest in consciousness in our daily life? Is the first step is this drishtabhava, where we slowly switch from being involved in everything as I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, to the sense of being the observer of your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own activities, Initially, what happens is we cannot practice it right away because we get sucked in too fast. And other times, when we try to step back, then the only way we know is like not to be active. So this kind of a duality kind of goes on, where we either are able to sit quietly and not be involved, or we learn to be completely involved, but without being the observer. So this is how we slowly train ourselves to first maintain that activities, as Janak Maharaj is doing, as King Janaka does. He fulfills all his activities, but yet he doesn't lose that sense of being the observer of them, being the consciousness, abiding in consciousness. So one is practice, as you use the word practice. The practice is that. But really what Advaita Vedanta is not based on practice. Advaita Vedanta or Vedanta is teachings of Ashtavakra is based on direct understanding and wisdom. It is like saying, this is a pen. So the moment you know this is a pen, do you next time see this, do you have to think what it is and all that? You know it, right? That knowledge is there. So similarly, once we get that knowledge of ourselves, who we truly are, then you don't have to think and practice it. It is not something that has to be practiced. But there is a practice element. The practice element he has given there, that all that straightforwardness and satya, truthfulness. Why you need practice is that mind is not able to rest in that. See, the word he is using is vishramya, rest. See, most of us, we want to even maintain a certain thought, sankalpa, in meditation. Even if you want to think about God or something, you have to keep practicing that thought, right? But in consciousness, you don't need to practice in that sense. Once you recognize that consciousness. So how do you come to this recognition? Through this, what we call as pointers. Slowly that pointers will come. Now the problem here is what we do need to practice is our habitual pattern of going back into world, or habitual pattern of thinking. So, we are used to having this feeling. It has one of the famous things. I think, therefore I am. Some famous philosopher statement. We think that we exist because we are thinking. So what we do, we try to practice stop thinking, as the yoga teaches us. So, but in reality, whether thinking or non-thinking is going on, that pointers, if it is direct, and if you're attuned to getting that pointers, and if sometimes, that can come in a flash. And if that comes through, then that practice is not necessary, that abiding is easier. Okay, huh? All right, huh? So I think we'll leave it at that then, huh?
Swamiji, 1 minute.
Huh.
Is there any bhashyam on these verses? The Shankara bhashyam like that?
No. Ashtavakra Gita, there's no bhashyam. There are some scholars who have written materials on that, but it is not like that bhashyam which we have in the thing. Why? Because this is not like a prakriyas, you know. These are nididhyasana shlokas. Like you just hear it and you meditate on this. So you ideally, you know, although I am using sometimes process to help explain, once you have heard it, you don't keep like thinking, okay, what process is this? Like in we do in Mananam sometimes, you know. That is not that. Here you just reflect on this. If I can separate from the body and rest in consciousness, if I can separate from the body and rest in consciousness. So I'm not trying to use my deductive mind to come to this truth. Because what happens, that deductive mind needs all that logic, you know, that how can I be separate from the body? So for explaining, I can do. But when we meditate on this, we have to just kind of hold on to this. And that kind of is a non-conceptual truth that is supposed to strike us, you know.
Is he different? These ideas are different from Upanishads?
No, that's what I think you are going out and coming, Gopal Reddy ji. Huh? You're not listening.
No, same thing. Parallelly, same ideas I'm getting. That's why.
No, I just mentioned this. I just mentioned that these are based on the Upanishads. Huh? I think you are not there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Huh? All right. Okay. So I think it's time. So we will end it here. And every Sunday we'll just go through this. And those of you who don't have the text can ask me. But as many of you have the text, you try to look at it. So the right way to follow up on this is you keep that. Maybe like we used to do, you know, earlier years during our Mananam and all that. We would write one of the shlokas that appeals to you, and then just keep it somewhere and keep just looking at it, reflecting on that, and that will strike. Okay, so we'll leave it at this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you. See you all. Namaste. Okay.
Jai Shri Krishna Guruji.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Krishna.